In the last video, we gave a brief overview on Tableau and how this interactive online tool can quickly identify information for our schools. We actually took a look at Lake Hills, and we used that as an example because it has some very similar demographics to the state with 50% free and reduced lunch. But it tends to, the last couple of years, tends to score much higher. It has a grade span of 3 and 4 that are tested, and there's about 109 students in those two grades. You're getting two residuals. One that gives you, on the left, the residual z-score. And the residual z-score will tell you how many standard deviations. So where the finger is pointing, that is almost 0.8 standard deviations above that black line, which is the state best fit line. If I come over here and find Lake Hills, I get the same information, but what this dot represents is a residual percentage, and this is on a weighted proficiency level, which says that they're almost 27% above that best fit line for the state, which might be just another way for districts to understand the residuals and some of the Reading Now Network data. Just to give you a quick overview about how we came up with the proficiency levels, we're going to go to the table for the Reading Now Network data. So we're going to take a look at this pivot table that was done, and what was looked at is the grade span for each of the buildings, and they totaled up the number of students that were advanced proficient and gave them 100%. We looked at the number of kids that were proficient, gave them a score of 80%. If they were partially proficient, we gave them a score of 50%, and if they were not proficient, we gave them a score of 0. This resulted in these weighted proficiency levels. Now, the interesting thing about these weighted proficiency levels is where proficiency was very low for schools, like 0% or 1%, you can see where when proficiency was really low, it brought their proficiency up by almost 5% or more. So the difference between the weighted proficiency and just the straight percent proficient, you get a bit of an increase because it gives more credit to those partially proficient students. On the high end of the scale, where we have schools that have 80-90% proficient, you'll see that there hasn't been much change. The change is only about 1% on average, where they might have gone up or down 1% compared to what they were getting when we gave a very specific weight to advanced kids, giving a little bit more of an advantage to those advanced kids. What this looks like when we compare it to the z-scores that we're used to doing, it basically means that if you're in the green for the z-scores on that residual, you were in the green for the performance level as well. In fact, you can see this correlation where I took the residual for the z-scores and mapped it against the residual for the performance levels, and it has an extremely high correlation coefficient of r squared at a 0.96. So extremely high there. Maybe we'll tweak this a little bit more with time and see how we can tighten this up a little bit. But basically what it ended up doing is it gave us this graph that we can see on Tableau that really shows the schools in terms of not only their z-score performance, but also in terms of their weighted proficiency. So we can see where a school like Brown Elementary was almost 26% above where we would have predicted them to be, which is actually 0.9 standard deviations. So hopefully the two numbers there are a little bit more for districts to look at and consider, and hopefully it puts things in a better perspective for them. Hope this video was helpful.